Is psychology a science? In 2003, Britain's Science Council issued the official definition of science. They stated that science is the pursuit of knowledge and an understanding of the natural and social world. This knowledge is established with evidence that is acquired by systematic methods. The systematic method of experimentation to gather evidence is known as the scientific method. Merriam-Webster defines psychology as the study of the mind or the study of behavior. It is also noted by Merriam-Webster to be a science of mind or behavior. To be determined a true science, based on the science definition, psychology would need to acquire knowledge and understanding about the mind and human behavior using systematic or empirical methods. Empirical studies or research has conclusions from verifiable evidence. Empirical studies have most often relied on observation, a measure of reality. This type of research uses a systematic approach to gathering and analyzing data. The word empirical comes from an ancient Greek word, empirikos, meaning experienced. Data must be observed to test theories and to obtain results in an experiment or conclusions. Behaviorists began using the scientific method in laboratory settings to study theories in psychology. However, there is always a question about whether experimentation in psychology is objective. Obtaining identical results from experiments in psychology is often difficult. This means that measurability is a problem. Scientific method. A scientific method is a systematic approach for conducting experiments around a hypothesis and drawing conclusions. Conducting experiments to evaluate a hypothesis is the basis of the scientific method. Designing a controlled experiment for these tests where a control group is assessed along with an experimental group is the foundational concept of empirical studies in research. There is a flow chart that can be used to model or illustrate the process for the scientific method of experimentation. Once a problem has been identified, a hypothesis about the result can be drafted. From this, a prediction is made about the results and an experiment is designed to assess the hypothesis. In the experiment, a control group's data is collected and compared with the data of the experimental group to see an accurate result of the testing results. Two types of variables are used in these experiments: independent variables and dependent variables. An independent variable causes the change in the dependent variable. The two variables cannot be reversed, whereas the dependent variable cannot cause change in the independent variable. Oftentimes a statistical analysis is done of the data and presented in the research using graphs, tables, and drawings along with the written explanations. Upon drawing conclusions of the experiment, the researcher will note whether the conclusion supported the hypothesis or did not support the hypothesis. Why is psychology a science? Psychology is considered a science today. It is a new science. Most experiments in psychology are conducted in a lab environment and use the scientific method to develop hypotheses, gather data, and draw conclusions. Psychology gathers knowledge and understanding through observation, just like any other field of study. Due to this empirical approach in research, psychology can be considered a science. Psychological research studies are conducted with two types of analysis: quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative analysis is objective and uses deductive reasoning. It gathers and summarizes data using statistical results to draw conclusions using numbers, percentages, and facts. There is no room for interpretation of language, opinion, or emotion. Statistical results can be used to predict outcome or behavior. When numbers are not a possibility in the research, qualitative analysis becomes the method, which is subjective and inductive. Examples of qualitative research would include interviews, online forums, focus groups, and opinion surveys.